I think Lee from Jacksonville, Florida left us a message.
Hey, Andy, Joe, and Al. We have a Roth IRA with $130,000, a traditional IRA with $120,000. We are currently in the top, near the top of the 22% tax bracket. We've been trying to convert IRA into traditional IRA pieces at a time, about $20,000 a year. But we're getting to the point where we're probably not going to get done by the time the tax hikes occur when they expire in 2026. So our question is, instead of contributing the $12,000 a year to Roth IRAs, $6,000 into my wife's and $6,000 into mine, should we just bite the bullet and convert as much as humanly possible into the Roth IRA from the traditional, using the $12,000 for taxes that we would have contributed to the Roth? We could probably complete it in about 2 years, except we would not be contributing to the Roth. We would have just rolled over everything from the traditional. Really appreciate any spitballing you can give. I am currently driving in my silver Tacoma. I'm not drinking because that would be bad. And we have 2 cats. I emailed before, but figured I'd give you my voice this time. Lee from Jacksonville, out.
Lee. Yeah, nice to hear your voice, Lee. All right. He's cruising around in Tacoma, thinking about converting. So he wants to use some leverage.
Sure.
I like the strategy, but I don't know if it makes sense.
Okay.
So
what do you say?
Well, a couple of things. What Lee is trying to do is to get all of his money from the traditional IRA to the Roth. So he's got $120,000 in his IRA. He's got $130,000 in the Roth, and he's like, hey, let me bang this thing out. Let me convert $20,000 a year. And over the next several years, that 120 is now all going to be in a Roth IRA. I'll pay the tax and we'll be good. I like that, but he doesn't necessarily have to convert 100% of the IRA. It doesn't make any sense.
Right.
So what the strategy he's talking about makes sense for a lot of people, but I don't think it makes sense for Lee. So what Lee wants to do is say, you know what? I'm making Roth IRA contributions. We're making $6,000 contributions per year for the spouse and I. So instead of taking that $12,000 that would have went into a Roth, maybe we convert $30,000 and we'll have a tax bill of $12,000. Instead of contributing to the Roth, we'll just take that $12,000 and we pay the IRS to get the $30,000 conversion in the Roth.
Right.
So, I mean, I don't have a calculator. I just kind of totally made that number up.
Close enough. I mean, maybe it's $40,000, but that's the concept, right? So believe it or not, I agree with you. And the reason is because you don't have to convert everything. I mean, if that's your goal to convert everything, great. But in this example, you got $120,000. I don't know how old you are, Lee, but let's just say, first of all, let's just say you're in your 60s.
Lee's not in his 60s.
I know, but I'm going to give 2 answers.
Did you hear his voice?
No, but I'm going to give 2 answers because for our other listeners, in your 60s, it means that your RMD is relatively close. It's probably going to be no more than $5,000-$6,000 for a year. So it's not a big number. Now, on the other hand, if you're in your 30s or 40s, which you probably are, then it's going to grow a little bit more. The RMD, required minimum distribution, when you finally get there, will be higher. But you don't have to convert everything, because what happens is you're paying, by converting, you're paying taxes in a 22 or 24% bracket in order to save a 12 or 15% bracket later. So that's first of all. The concept, though, I agree with, which is, if you've only got a little bit of money, should you do a Roth contribution or should you use it to pay the tax on the conversion? I actually would prefer the tax on the conversion, because then your $12,000 can get $30,000 or $40,000 converted instead of just the $12,000 going into a Roth. So I like the concept. I just don't think the numbers are high enough to justify it.
So we're missing a lot of information, Lee. First, I think a lot of you just like to give us the IRA numbers, but you might have $2 million in a 401k.
Sure.
Right. Or there's other retirement accounts, or there's pensions, or there's other income. So we have to map out the entire scenario for you really to understand it. He's kind of looking at it in a bubble.
Right.
It's like, hey, I got $120,000 in this traditional IRA. He might have several other retirement accounts. I don't know. And I don't know if Lee's given us more information in the past, But we would have to look at the entire picture. If this is just a picture of only 120 here, your distributions, the force out on the distribution is not going to be that bad where it's going to pop you into another tax bracket where, you could slowly do the conversions. You don't have to get 100% of it in the Roth. But I like the concept.
Yeah. Well, that's a good point. Like, let's say you had $2 million in a 401k, then it would be completely different advice. Then I would say, yeah, it's a great plan, because you're going to want to bleed out as much as you can. And I'd rather have you use the $12,000 to pay the tax on a conversion than do the contribution.
So yeah, I think for other listeners out there our listeners love the Roth.
It's because you taught them to, Joe.
And so they want to look at every strategy possible to leverage the Roth.
Sure.
And
they like tax-free.
Yeah. I like Lee's point. And I think a lot of people probably should be looking at that strategy. So again, instead of taking the $12,000 from cash flow to go into a Roth contribution, let's say that's the only thing that they can afford, right? There's no extra cash flow. That's what they're going to save. That's what they're earmarked for, saving up $12,000. Does it make sense for them to convert or to add to their savings? Well, are they on track for their goals? First of all, do they need to use that money to continue to build their nest egg? Well, that's an obvious, right?
Sure.
But if they're close and they accomplish their goals, and then they want more diversification, well, then you want to use that or some or part of that to do the overall conversion. So, and Aaron, you don't have to tell me the time and talk into my ear. This is not TV. We could go a little bit longer.
It's because you forgot to push the start button.
Yeah. So we got the TV producer trying to help Andy out, and
right,
he just doesn't understand
when
the world of podcasts.
When he does that, then we don't hear each other.
It's awful.
We just hear him say 1 minute.
And it's so loud. It's not, usually when we do the TV show, you got an IFB and it's only in one ear, so you can still concentrate.
Right.
I was very proud of myself that I did not even pause a second.
I noticed that.
I could tell he's talking softer, but everything goes super quiet in your ears. 2 minutes. 2 minutes. It's like, it doesn't matter how loud you talk. Everything just shuts down.
Right.
So anyway, we got to take a break.
Are you prepared for retirement? Schedule a free financial assessment with an experienced financial professional right online at purefinancial.com.